The Rensport open beta is here, and with that we have something really interesting and something that I think is really pertinent to all of sim racing, and that is specifically how Rennsport plans to monetize itself and how this is really different to anything else that we've seen in any other simulator, and it's something that we tend to see in other video games like Rocket League and Counter-Strike. So at the moment in Rensport you have the option of being able to buy a Founders Pack Gold, Founders Pack Platinum, Founders Pack Diamond. Fine, that doesn't seem too different. In each Founders Pack you get access to the Nordschleifer, you get some car purchase tokens which you'll be able to exchange for cars in the future. The store's not available yet, but that'll be something you can do in the future, and you get like an EPEEN badge to show that you've supported the development of the game and you've got in early because you're a mega weirdo sim racing nerd. That's on the gold one. That's all pretty standard stuff. Where it gets really interesting is when you go to the platinum or the diamond screen. So on the platinum, we first of all have the Nordschleifer again, but we have the exclusive even for the Porsche 911 GT3R Rennsport, which is basically, as far as I can gather, effectively a number plate, a sort of custom number plate or a dedicated number plate for founders. Which then suggests that in the future you'll be able to get number plates or specific car identities for vehicles that you buy in the game. That is something that Rennsport discussed really early on when they first announced Rennsport. But we also get the introduction of purchasable liveries, and in this case, a static livery. Now, first time I saw this, I was like, hang on a minute, they've said the word static here, which then suggests that there's probably a non-static livery. Keep that in mind, guys. We then also have this Founders Wall, which immortalizes you on the Founders Track, which is a track that's in the game that is all based around Founders stuff. It's kind of like a test track, I think. And the Founders Wall is great because in a billion years' time, when aliens find the last surviving human hard drive, they will decode it and find some scribbles on a billboard in a video game, and they won't understand it because they won't know English. They're probably talking some weird language that doesn't even make any sense. So that's great though. Immortalized for all eternity on a board. Fantastic. Now, let's go to the really interesting one, the Diamond tab. So, more stuff on the Founders track, specifically runoff with your name on the runoff, so you can have your face run over by a car every time someone makes a mistake. That's something that everyone wants to pay for. Rubber in your face. It's quite nice. It would be, if they'd put that on a non-fictional track, that would be really interesting, because I think that would annoy quite a lot of people. But imagine the sort of prestige of having your name on the Nordschleifer on a board or something. Or imagine being a spectator in the game on the Nordschleifer that everyone's playing and being able to pay for that. This is sort of getting into that territory, which is really quite interesting, and something that I've never seen in any other driving game, obviously. And more akin to what you'd see in other stuff. But here we go. This is where it gets really interesting. Dynamic livery as well as a static livery. So presumably these liveries are animated or could be like video liveries or whatever in the future, and this shows that Rennsport are open to doing things that aren't necessarily totally literal or totally realistic with the liveries for the sake of the DLC. Now, personally, I actually think that's fantastic. I really like the custom cars in Rocket League. I really like the custom gun stuff in Counter-Strike. As long as it doesn't really affect the gameplay and allows the developer to make money and enough money to support the development of the game, I really don't care about the cosmetics. And I think it's actually quite fun to have random liveries and stuff in the video game, especially a racing simulator where you're just racing online. But I could totally see how really hardcore sim racers will have an absolute breakdown over this, because part of the appeal for a lot of the mega deluded sim fans and just people that are role playing, not to knock them, it's fine to enjoy that part of sim racing and simulation, but for a lot of them, the value of like a Porsche in a video game is the fact that it's got the actual real livery and everyone's driving the same livery, or it's a recreation of the 1996 whatever race, or it's a real it's a real thing in their mind. It's part their role playing effectively. So when you start having animated car liveries and crazy stuff happening, it really ruins the simulation for them. So I can see this being really, really divisive. Again, personally, I think this is great as long as it doesn't affect the gameplay. You could argue like a noisy car livery could ruin the gameplay. A good example of that is that in Counter-Strike, you can buy different agents, the different character models, and some of them are easier or harder to see. Or even if you remember Quake 3 with different characters, or Odd Job in GoldenEye. I don't mind talking about stuff from the 90s, which no one else gets. But remember Odd Job in GoldenEye? Obviously that wasn't DLC, that was in the game. But he was so small, you could hide in boxes and be invisible, but very hard to shoot. But in Counter-Strike, some of the agents are harder to see, so it actually does start to affect gameplay. I believe you can turn that off. It'd be interesting to know in Rensport, will people be able to turn custom liveries off? If they can, that would reduce the value of the livery to people that have custom liveries and want everyone to see them. It's really interesting how this could affect Sims, and also just an interesting way to monetize Sims. As I say, from my view, the crucial thing to me is if this allows the developer to make money and continue development, if it doesn't affect the core gameplay and divide the player base, like what we see with games like iRacing, where they keep adding tracks and new tracks have much lower player numbers, or new cars are popular at first but then they start dying out, or even with like Race Room, there's loads of content on there and it gets very confusing for people to buy. If you can get rid of all that complexity and have it so that someone can get into the game basically free to play and effectively play with other people, and then entirely optionally buy content, that I think is actually the ideal thing for something like sim racing, which is quite a small niche and quite difficult to get people into the same events. But I can see why people wouldn't like it. So I just think it's really interesting. It'd be an interesting discussion to have. I'll be interested to see the comments underneath this video. But for now with Rensport, you have those 3 packs available. $15.99 for the gold, $31 for the platinum, and $55 for the diamond. We'll have to see how this pans out in the long term. But before I go, if you want to check out our first impressions of Rennsport, check out our first impressions of the open beta video. And you can check out Rennsport yourself by clicking on the link in the description. But until the next one, guys, thank you very much for watching. Happy tea drinking. Take care. And goodbye.